Hello and welcome to the Luv Doc podcast with hosts Waldo Wachewski and Ophelia Brewski.
Today, we're tackling something really personal, but also, well, pretty common. Tricky family stuff, specifically dealing with a difficult future mother-in-law.
Exactly. There's a letter someone sent into the Luv Doc laying out their struggles.
And then we have the response they got back, which is pretty direct.
So our mission today is really to unpack this whole situation, understand the dynamics in the letter, look at the advice given.
And see what nuggets we can pull out about navigating these complex relationships when you're kind of joining a new family system.
It's like getting a peek into someone's very real problem and then hearing some pretty blunt feedback on it.
Right. So we have the listener's own words describing the issue and the Luv Doc's perspective.
And the core issue for the listener is basically wrestling with this future mother-in-law who sounds challenging.
Mm-hmm. And how her behavior affects the fiancé, and also, importantly, where the listener fits in all this. Like, what's their role? What boundaries should they have?
Yeah, those are the big questions. It's a common problem, but the details here really paint a picture.
They really do. Let's start with the listener's story, because it sets everything up.
Okay. So they moved back to Austin, reconnected with an old high school friend.
Started dating.
And now, 3 years later, they're engaged. Sounds pretty good, right? A nice solid start.
It does. But then the family stuff comes into focus.
Yeah.
Big time.
And it really centers on the fiance's mother. The listener's view of her has completely flipped.
Right. Back in high school, she was apparently the cool mom.
Yeah, the one who let kids drink at her house.
Yeah.
Maybe seemed fun back then.
Maybe. But now, looking back as an adult and actually dealing with the reality of it.
The description changes dramatically.
Yeah.
The listener now calls her a vapid, attention-craving narcissist and alcoholic.
Whoa! That is quite the shift. And they connect that cool mom persona directly to what they see now as really poor parenting.
The letter says she barely parented her children at all.
And the fallout from that, according to the letter, seems pretty significant for the kids.
Especially the fiancé. He's the oldest, and the listener says he's basically taken care of his younger brother and sister since as long as he can remember.
Wow, that's a heavy burden for a kid. And those younger siblings, still struggling.
Yeah, financially, mental health issues, addiction problems, and they're still living at home with the mother.
So it's not like this is past history, it's ongoing chaos.
Exactly. The mother's apparently still throwing these parties, described with random sketchy people.
Which leads to drama, fights, even police calls sometimes.
And the fiancé is stuck dealing with all this while holding down a demanding job and planning a wedding.
You can just feel the listener's frustration coming off the page, can't you?
Totally. They admit they get upset, say mean things about the mom.
And then the fiancé gets defensive, which is understandable, but also creates conflict between them.
Right. And that leads the listener to these huge questions like, can our relationship survive her?
And thinking ahead, what will she be like as a grandmother? That's a scary thought in this context.
There's also that frustration, like why does he let her get away with so much? The listener wants to protect him naturally.
But when they try, he just gets angry. It's a real bind.
He really is. The listener even says it's amazing he still loves his mom, considering he apparently complains about her even more than the listener does.
Which really highlights how complicated these family ties can be, especially when there's, a history of dysfunction like this. It's deep-seated.
Okay, so that's the picture painted for Luv Doc. A tough one.
And the response. It starts by calling it a rich and interesting tableau.
Which sounds almost comically understated, given the details. A bit dry, maybe?
A little bit.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is how Luv Doc immediately hones in on this whole cool parent idea.
Yeah, they don't hold back. Calls them thirsty.
Mm-hmm. Arguing it often comes from wanting their kids' approval or maybe a fear that the kids will leave them.
Thirsty is such a specific word choice there. And they criticize taking that neediness outside your own kids, getting other people's children involved.
Yeah, and they use some really vivid, kind of blunt examples to illustrate it.
Like thinking you're playing chess to get your kids' friends on your side.
But really, you're just showing you're a pushover.
And that specific image of making a late-night beer run for your daughter's boyfriend, Cody, it's so specific it feels like it must have happened.
It does. And then Luv Doc just asks, point blank, what in the actual fuck AK are you doing?
Okay, yeah. 0 punches pulled in this advice column.
Definitely not. But to be fair, they do offer a counterpoint. They acknowledge some parents did allow drinking at home safely.
As maybe a better option than like unsupervised keg parties somewhere else.
Right. And they even share a personal story here.
Oh, yeah, the one about falling off a bar stool at friend Tony's trailer with parents present.
When they were just shy of 15
Yeah.
in Oklahoma.
Makes rural Virginia sound like a country club, apparently. And the detail about Mickey's big mouths.
The perfect trailer park beverage for a lot of bang for your buck. It adds this layer of, well, messy reality to the parenting discussion.
It does. It grounds it a bit.
Holy crap! You're psychotically obsessed with the Luv Doc, but can't think of a flashy gauche way to share your obsession with the world? Stop thinking and make a beeline for the Luv Doc's home sweet home on the interwebs, thepleasurecraft.com, where you can find a veritable treasure trove of sick merch that will make even your coolest friends super gel. Honestly, I don't know why you didn't already think of this yourself, but you're welcome. Have fun on the Pleasure Craft. It was made just for you. Let me spell it out for you one more time. www.thepleasurecraft.com.
But bringing it back to the listener situation, the core message about difficult parents is clear.
Some of them, the doc says, are really shitty. Plain and simple.
And they broaden the scope, too, mentioning kids of the super rich and powerful, like the Trump kids or Elon Musk.
And Luv Doc points out that investing all that worry, all that care, it can be really traumatizing.
Right.
But here's the really tricky part. It can actually start to feel like love. Almost impossible to tell the difference.
So that constant responsibility, always worrying about the parent, managing their crises, that gets tangled up with feelings of loyalty and connection.
Precisely. It becomes ingrained. It's been their reality for so long.
Ah, okay. So when the listener sees the fiancé letting her get away with so much, it might not be a simple choice for him. It could be this lifetime pattern of caretaking that feels, well, like love, or at least obligation that feels like love.
Exactly. It's much more complex than just enabling. And that's where the core advice for the listener comes in, and it's very direct.
Yeah, Luv Doc is crystal clear. That's not for you to work through.
They kind of assume the listener probably had a more stable upbringing, maybe won the parent lottery, so to speak.
And the absolute key takeaway for the listener is, you need to allow your fiancé to have his feelings. He earned them.
That's got to be tough to hear when you just want to jump in and fix things for someone you love, right?
Definitely. But the advice is saying, look, your urge to protect him might actually be stopping him from processing his own very complicated history with his mother.
A history shaped by decades of this dynamic.
So the listener's role needs to shift away from fixing, away from protecting.
And more towards just being supportive.
Yeah.
Ideally, the advice says, you will support him through what will undoubtedly be some tough times.
Because those tough times probably aren't just going to vanish.
No. And Luv Doc adds that very pragmatic kind of stark warning. Some cranky old alcoholics still manage to make it to a very ripe old age.
Meaning this difficult dynamic with the mother, it could be part of their lives for a very, very long time.
Yeah, a sobering thought.
Okay, so let's try to connect the dots here. We've got the listener's story, the Luv Doc's analysis. What are the main insights for our listener, or maybe anyone in a similar boat?
Well, I think we see the long shadow that cool parenting can cast, potentially leading to kids becoming parentified. That's one big thing.
Right, the burden shifting onto the child.
Then there's understanding the potential trauma involved and how that can create this really tangled sense of loyalty and obligation that looks and feels a lot like love.
Making it hard for the person, like the fiancé, to just detach or set firm boundaries easily.
Exactly. His reactions, his struggles, they're rooted in this long history. It's not just about him choosing to tolerate bad behavior now. It's deeper than that.
So understanding all that really changes the game for the listener, doesn't it?
It has to. It means stepping back from trying to change the mother or even trying to fix the fiancé's relationship with his mother.
Because that's his journey to navigate based on his own life experience.
Right. So the focus for the listener shifts. It becomes more about their boundaries, their capacity.
Like the advice column asked, are you up to it? Can you support your partner through this, potentially for the long haul, knowing it might not change?
It's about honestly assessing that. Can they be that supportive partner without getting drawn into trying to fix something that isn't theirs to fix?
Yeah, recognizing the landscape you're marrying into and deciding if you can navigate it with your partner rather than trying to change the landscape itself.
It's a tough reality check for sure, but probably a necessary one before committing fully.
So this deep dive really started with this raw, honest letter about the pain and confusion around a difficult future mother-in-law.
Yeah, we traced that journey from the perception of a cool mom to seeing her as a source of ongoing chaos.
We saw the immense weight on the fiancé stemming from that history.
And we dug into that very blunt, but maybe ultimately helpful advice from Luv Doc.
I think the core message from the advice really rings clear. The responsibility for navigating that complex mother-son relationship, it ultimately lies with the fiancé given his history.
And the listener's most powerful role is support, but only if they've truly looked at what that support might entail long-term and decided they're genuinely prepared for it.
Which leaves us, and maybe you listening, with a really interesting question to chew on right from the heart of this whole dilemma.
How do you tell the difference between family loyalty that comes from real love and connection
And loyalty that's maybe been built up over years from obligation, from taking care of someone, maybe even from trauma?
And once you start to see that distinction, what does it actually mean for a new relationship trying to grow and be healthy within that existing, maybe complicated family system? Something to think about.
To read the column that spawned this podcast, go to austinchronicle.com/columns/the Luv Doc. There are probably worse things to do with your time, right?